Today is Thursday, April 30th, 2026. Pressure is mounting on the occupier to accept talks. There is international pressure after the Pope's visit on the brutal and murderous regime to bring this conflict to an end, negotiate with the Ambazonian people, and bring the humanitarian disaster to a halt. The occupier is always chasing propaganda and optics. When pressure is mounting for talks, in order to divert international attention, the regime in Yaoundé has instructed Norway to go for the kill. Norway, following instructions from Yaoundé, has officially charged Dr. Cho Lucas Ayaba, the father of Ambazonian freedom. My brothers and sisters, history has taught us one consistent lesson. Every system built on domination eventually calls those who resist it terrorists. Slave masters call freedom fighters dangerous. Colonial powers call liberation movements extremist. The apartheid regimes called demand for equality a threat to national security. Occupiers have always feared one thing above all else: a people that refuse to kneel forever. Throughout history, those who dared to stand up and say, we are human beings, we deserve dignity, we deserve rights, we deserve justice, were criminalized, haunted, imprisoned, and demonized by the very system they changed. This is not new. That is the oldest playbook of power. On June 11th, 1964, Nelson Mandela was sentenced to life imprisonment by the apartheid regime in South Africa for mobilizing his people against racial domination and political exclusion. The same system that branded him as a terrorist eventually sat across the table from him in negotiations, and history delivered its verdict. Mandela walked out of prison not as a defeated man, but as the future president of a democratic South Africa. Martin Luther King Jr. was jailed 30 times because he challenged segregation and injustice in the United States. Gandhi was arrested 13 times and jailed numerous times for resisting colonial rule and exploitation. At the time, they were called agitators. Today, they are remembered as moral giants. Why? Because history eventually separates propaganda from principles. My people, when systems begin to lose moral legitimacy, they often resort to intimidation, legal pressure, propaganda, and the criminalization of dissent. This is not strength. This is anxiety disguised as authority. Let me say one thing with a little humor for those in Yaoundé who still believe politics stopped in 1984. A government can arrest individuals. It cannot arrest an idea whose time has entered the hearts of the people. A government can fill prisons. It cannot imprison memory. You cannot imprison grievances. You cannot imprison rights. You cannot imprison identity. And you cannot certainly imprison the human desire for dignity. This is where some in power continue to misunderstand the present moment. They still imagine politics as something controlled from the top down, as if history is a television remote setting permanently in the Unity Palace. But the reality on the ground has changed. The political consciousness of the people has changed. The social reality has changed. The relationship between the population and the colonial occupying state has changed forever. And once a people fundamentally changes psychologically, the old methods stop producing the old results. This is why every attempt to suppress the movement through arrest, intimidation, pressure has not erased the grievances. It has deepened resentment and hardened attitudes. Not because our people enjoy suffering, but because people do not endure hardship indefinitely without demanding meaning, justice, and change. To our people, I say this: remain calm, remain disciplined, remain focused. Do not allow emotions to replace strategy. Do not allow frustration to replace organization. Remember, in August 2019, the Cameroon state, upon paying 50 million US dollars to Nigerian DSS in arresting or in abducting and renditioning Siseko Ayoktabe and 9 others of his deputies from Nigeria to Cameroon, they charged Siseko with terrorism, rebellion, and treason. All great struggles are not won by noise alone. They are won by endurance. They are won by clarity, by discipline under pressure, and understanding this clearly. No movement should depend entirely on one man. Siseko never said the liberation depended on him alone. He knew Cameroon would go after him for challenging their occupation and exploitation of his people. So knew they would go after him. For the first time in Cameroon's history, a man stood up and challenged Cameroon's use of violence on his people, challenged Cameroon's occupation. And now Cameroon is facing an existential crisis. The Biya regime is almost out. The Ambazonian liberation struggle is not resting on one movement or on one leader. No movement should depend entirely on one man, one group, or one movement, or even on a defense group. Serious movements survive because they are rooted in collective consciousness, not personalities. Cameroon can jail Siseko for life, jail Mancho for 15, jail Penn, jail Conrad, jail Benji. Ambazonia will still be free. This is why history continues moving even when leaders are imprisoned, silenced, or removed. Because the deeper force is always the people themselves. The deeper force, the strongest force, is the 12 million Ambazonians. No nation can sustainably govern through force alone forever. No political crisis disappears through denial. And no durable stability can emerge without addressing underlying grievances and root causes seriously and honestly. The future of peace will not be built through propaganda banners, intimidation, attempt to manufacture appearance of normalcy. It will be built through courage, justice, dialogue, dignity, and political realism. As the Pope has warned Cameroon, my brothers and sisters, do not lose heart. So prepare for this day. The road is difficult because history is difficult. But history always teaches us this. Every generation is tested. Some generations surrender to fear. Others rise to responsibility. This generation must rise, not recklessly, not blindly, but with resilience, with intelligence, with discipline, and with an unbreakable determination to pursue self-determination, freedom, justice, dignity, and peace strategically. Stand firm, stay united, and remember this: the powerful often appear invisible right before history changes. The Ambazonia Governing Council and the leadership of under Dr. Choluka Sayaba and the IG care of Siseko Ayoktabe Julius and Ambazonia prisoners of conscience have come together under the Unity Alliance. And through the Unity Alliance, in constant consultation with the leadership on the ground and the forces on the ground, Ambazonia will prevail.